Hare Krishna, dear devotees, Dandat Pranam. We are reading from the book Light of Bhagavata by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The author. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada appeared in this world in 1896 in Calcutta, India. He first met his spiritual master Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami in Calcutta in 1922. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was prominent religious scholar and founder of Gaudiya Math, a Vaishnava movement with 64 centers in India. He liked this young man and convinced him to dedicate his life to teaching Vedic knowledge. Srila Prabhupada became his student and in 1933 received initiation as his disciple. At their first meeting, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati requested Srila Prabhupada to broadcast Vedic knowledge in English. In the years that followed, Srila Prabhupada wrote a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita and assisted the Gaudiya Math in its work. In 1944, he started Back to Godhead, a fortnightly magazine in English. Single-handedly, Srila Prabhupada edited it, typed the manuscripts, checked the galley proofs, and even distributed the individual copies. The magazine now continues to be published in different languages by his disciples throughout the world. In 1950, Srila Prabhupada retired from domestic life to devote more time to his studies and writing. He traveled to the holy town of Vrindavan, where he lived in humble circumstances in the historic temple of Radha Damodar. There, for several years, he engaged in deep study and writing. He accepted the renounced order of life, sannyas, in 1959. It was the Radha Damodar temple that Srila Prabhupada began work on his life's masterpiece. A multi-volume translation of 18,000 verse Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Puran, with full commentary. After publishing 3 volumes of the Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada traveled by freighter to the New York City. He was practically penniless, but he had faith that the mission of his spiritual master could be successful. On the day he landed in America and saw the grey mist hanging over the towering skyscrapers, he penned these words in his diary. My dear Lord Krishna, I am sure that when this transcendental message penetrates their hearts, they will certainly feel gladdened and thus become liberated from all unhappy conditions of life. He was 69 years old, alone, and with few resources, but the wealth of spiritual knowledge and devotion he possessed was an unwavering source of strength and inspiration. At a very advanced age, when most people would be resting on their laurels, writes Harvey Cox, Harvard University theologian and author, Srila Prabhupada hankered to the mandate of his own spiritual teacher and set out on the difficult and demanding voyage to America. Srila Prabhupada is of course only one of the thousands of teachers, but in another sense, he is one in 1,000, maybe one in 1,000,000. In 1966, Srila Prabhupada founded the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, which became the formal name for the Hare Krishna movement. In the years that followed, Srila Prabhupada gradually attracted tens of thousands of followers, started more than 100 temples and ashrams, and published scores of books. His achievement is remarkable in that he transplanted India's ancient spiritual culture to the 20th century Western world. In 1968, Srila Prabhupada sent 3 devotee couples to bring Krishna consciousness to UK. At first, these devotees were cared for by Hindu families who appreciated their mission, but soon they became well known in London for the public chanting in Oxford Street. A headline in Times announced, Krishna chant thoughtless London. But the Mahamantra soon became popular. Former Beatle George Harrison, who had known Srila Prabhupada and the chanting before the devotees came to England, wanted to help. He arranged to produce mantra on the Beatles Apple label. It reached the top 10 in Britain and number 1 in some other countries. When Srila Prabhupada arrived in England, he was the guest of John Lennon at his estate in Tittenhurst, while work was progressing on the temple in Bloomsbury near the British Museum. In November 1969, Srila Prabhupada opened the temple, the first Radha Krishna temple in Europe. The movement grew from strength to strength. Once again, George Harrison offered to help by donating a beautiful mock Tudor manor house and estate in Hertfordshire, now named Bhaktivedanta Manor, It is the society's main training center in Britain. New devotees of Krishna soon became highly visible in all the major cities around the world by their public chanting and distribution of Srila Prabhupada's books of Vedic knowledge. They began staging joyous cultural festivals throughout the year and serving millions of plates of delicious food offered to Krishna, known as prasad, throughout the world. As a result, ISKCON has significantly influenced the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. The late A.L. Basham, one of the world's leading authorities on Indian history and culture, wrote the Hare Krishna movement arose out of next to nothing and in less than 20 years has become known all over the West. This is an important fact in the history of the Western world. In just 12 years, despite his advanced age, Srila Prabhupada circled the globe 14 times on lecture tours that took him to 6 continents. Yet this vigorous schedule did not slow his prolific literary output. His writings constitute a veritable library of Vedic philosophy, religion, literature, and culture. Indeed, Srila Prabhupada's most significant contribution is his books. Highly respected by academics for their authority, depth, and clarity, they are used as textbooks in numerous university courses. Gary Gillard, a professor at Oxford University's Department of Philosophy, wrote of them, "These texts are to be treasured. No one of whatever faith or philosophical persuasion who reads these books with an open mind can fail to be removed and impressed." And Dr. Larry Sheen, Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences at Bucknell University, wrote, "Prabhupada's personal piety gave him real authority. He exhibited complete command of the scriptures, an unusual depth of realization, and an outstanding personal example, because he actually lived what he taught. His writings have been translated into over 80 languages. The Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, established in 1972 to publish the works of His Divine Grace, has thus become the world's largest publisher of books in the field of Indian religion and philosophy. By the end of 1991, 450 million copies had been sold. Before he passed away on the 14th of November 1977, Srila Prabhupada had guided ISKCON and seen it grow confederation of more than 100 ashrams, schools, temples, institutes, and farm communities. Let's conclude here. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.